I've been there a few times, mainly for hiking. Even had a honeymoon there once. This year I went with a group of friends and people I had never met to do a 13-mile round trip day hike up to Mount LeConte Lodge. It was my second time doing that. The views were incredible, the trail elevation unforgiving, and the mountains were spectacular. Until this is footage from the trip I took just 11 days prior to the outbreak of the wildfires. You can see how beautiful and lush the foliage is, and our group was in great spirits this day. The hike up Rainbow Falls has 3,000 feet of elevation gain over 6.7 miles and is considered one of the more difficult trails in the park. We didn't care. We simply set our pace and enjoyed the views. The exhaustion and the soreness could not compare to the beauty that was all around us. On November 23rd, 11 days later, at approximately 5:30 p.m., park firefighters would spot a column of smoke and fire that had burned 1.5 acres here at the Chimney Tops Trail near a rock scramble. The next day, and on subsequent days, the prolonged drought and wind events would spread the fire past drainages and natural barriers until the end result was the footage you see now. My friend Jen and I wanted to see the devastation for ourselves, so we came back to the park and the Gatlinburg area and filmed as much as we could. When filming, we respected the property and privacy of the residents and simply drove through rather than stop. These folks had been through enough and didn't need gawkers and rubberneckers making things worse. When it was all said and done, and when the fires were put out, 14 people had lost their lives, almost 1,700 structures were damaged, and an estimated 134 suffered injuries. Given this carnage, needless to say, no one wanted to do an interview for this film. Understandable. While we were there, we witnessed the community come together for a benefit concert for the victims, and local and national celebrities also contributed their time, money, and talent to help rebuild. The tagline of "The Smokies Will Rise Again" was seen on many shirts, a testament to the close-knit community that had suffered so much in such a short amount of time. We were very moved by their love for one another as well as their steadfast determination to rise again. This seemed to be the hardy nature of any Tennessean. As we drove through the hardest hit areas, one of the things that surprised us was how hit and miss the fires actually were. Of course, there were clusters of cabins that were burnt up, there were clusters of businesses that were affected, but in some places it seemed to jump over a cabin and start on the next one next to it. This surprised us very much, until I started doing research for this film. And this can be explained by the wind events that were happening at the time. Wind gusts up to 87 miles per hour were sending embers everywhere. So in some cases, cabins got lucky. the embers would jump over their cabin and spot fire onto the next one. This is why we were seeing some intact cabins and some cabins that were just devastated. As we drove to this area of Chalet Village, which sits above Gatlinburg on the hillside, we noticed the combination of destruction and beauty. Burned out cabins, but beautiful mountain views. Such a thing was kind of difficult to take in. Can't imagine being a resident coming back here. Everybody I've ever talked to has a Gatlinburg story or a Pigeon Forge story. It's a very beloved place, and the damage was estimated to cost about $500 million, according to some reports. They will rebuild, and nature always bounces back, obviously. But the outpouring of love from people around the country and in the area is the greatest gift out of this tragedy. Everybody wants to save this area. Everybody loves this area. And that's why so much money has been pledged to help rebuild. To date, about $9 million have been pledged to help the families to rebuild and to sustain themselves while rebuilding. This rebuilding effort will take a while. It's not going to be done in a month. It's likely to take years, but eventually everything will be put back to normal and people can get back to enjoying the area for its majestic beauty and its amusement and its entertainment. I've talked to a few people who've asked me about this area and what can they do to help the area. And I've also talked to some local people while I was down there and asked them the same question. And I usually get the same answer. Come down to Gatlinburg, come back, spend your money, shop in our shops. That is the single greatest thing that any of us can do to help this area. So that's what I plan on doing, and that's what I encourage you to do. Go to Gatlinburg, go to Pigeon Forge, take in their amusement, buy a hotel room for a couple of nights. That's the best thing that you can do to help. And if you feel like giving, give to a charity that is supporting the families. That's another thing you can do to help. But always keep the victims of the fire as well as the area in your prayers. That is something that all of us should do to protect and to help mend this beautiful area of the Smoky Mountains. Thank you.